Hello, my name is LoG and welcome to part 2 of this Playing Over Changes power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And now let's get on to the lesson. All right, a real quick recap from what we did in part 1, and then we'll get on to part 2. So if you remember, part 1 was moving from E minor to A minor, sounded like this. This final note, this F sharp, is the beginning of this video, which will cover moving from D major, or to be more specific, D dominant 7th, the kind of 5 chord of the key, to eventually G major, or to be more specific, G major 7, the 1 of the key. So let's see how we are traveling from the D into the G. We know we're starting on this F sharp right here for the D chord, which is the 3rd. And if you want to know kind of where I'm getting most of these chord tones from for the D chord, I'm kind of thinking about really kind of this plain D shape right here. This is just 1, 5, 1, 3 of D, D, A, D, F sharp. So you'll notice a lot of the chord tones that I'm landing on are going to be kind of right here in this little stacked 7th fret of the D string, G string, and B string. So watch this. This is what the D shape looks like, just the notes from the D chord. Then once I hit this final D, that's actually the 5th of the next chord, the G that we're about to talk about. So you can see most of the notes that I'm playing on the downbeats, like I just talked about in part 1, chord tones on the downbeats, a lot of those are located right here. I've got a couple notes kind of happening somewhere else. Most of them are right here. Let's go over what they are. First little passage. Kind of feels like just D major pentatonic. That would be the 3rd. F sharp, A, F sharp, E, D. So of D major, that's 3, 5, 3, 2, 1. That's our next note happening on the downbeat, just targeting the root right there. Next chord tone that I'm targeting is the 5, which is right here, just on the D string, same fret. And I'm getting to it by walking chromatic down from this note, the C, which is the flat 7, a note that's happening naturally inside of that D chord. I'm simply walking C, chromatic down to A. So C, B, B flat, A. So that phrase looks like this. Again, where are the chord tones happening? Where are those downbeats? Bam, 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 just like that. So that's 3rd, root, 5th, like that. And I'm still kind of bringing out that dominant 7th quality by sneaking in that note right there just to bring out that sound. So now once we're here, next chord tone is going to be this F sharp right there. That's just the 3rd of D in a lower register. How do I know that's the 3rd? Because if that's D, 1, 2, 3, my major scale tells me that is the 3rd. So how am I getting to this note? A couple other little chromatic notes to fill the space in between playing the 5th and then the 3rd, and that looks like this. Very, very classic kind of like bluegrass, country, jazz concept where you play the notes essentially surrounding the target note that you're moving to until the time comes to play that actual target note. So we're moving from, again, A, the 5, playing A, G, E, F natural, and then F sharp. This F sharp right here is the note that I'm targeting. I'm just playing the notes around it. Playing the A, playing the note ahead of it, then playing both of these notes behind it, walking up to eventually land on that F sharp. Again, that's on the downbeat, downbeat, downbeat. So that whole thing so far, we have all these notes on the downbeat. So 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd. So notice every time a downbeat happens, I'm playing straight up 1, 3, 5 chord tones. So let me play that part one more time. You can see what's happening, and I'll do that without talking. Everything technically as well, pretty straightforward, just kind of alternate picking, doing some pull-offs when it's comfortable. Once I hit this 3rd, got one more little passage to go, and this is going to take me into G, into the G chord. And the chord that I'm targeting, or excuse me, the note that I'm targeting for that chord is this D right there. That is G's 5. How am I seeing that note? Because I see this G right here, and I can see this little 1, 3, 5 shape, and I can tell that's the 5 of G. So I'm just targeting that note. How am I getting to it? Coming from this F sharp right here, the 3rd of the D chord, I'm walking up pretty much a dominant 7th arpeggio, except for one little note. F sharp, A, C, and then instead of playing D, which would be the root of the D chord, I don't want to play that note early because I'm about to play it. So instead of playing the D, I'm simply playing the note up 1 fret, E flat, and then resolving. So that last little part sounds like this. Bam, resolution right there. Now we're on to G. So you might notice this shape or see this shape as something slightly different because it sort of is. This is a diminished arpeggio being played off of F sharp. You can think about it like that. So F sharp, A, C natural, and then E flat kind of feels like this chord, which takes us into G. You can think about it like that. I just kind of think about it as D7, D dominant, by just sneaking in this one little E flat. That's like D's flat 2. However you want to think about it, it's all the same thing. You're just filling in notes to eventually take you to this G major. So let me play that whole thing, the sound on this D dominant leading into G. Sounds like this. One more time. Diminished. Bam. And then we resolve here onto this D. So now we're on the D and we're going to do a very similar things. Again, just targeting chord tones of the G chord. Let me just play the passage first and then we'll talk about it. Here we are coming from this D right here. This one's probably a little bit more complex than the others. A lot of chromaticism happening here. Even though the chord is a major 7 chord, still playing a lot of chromatic notes because I can, because I'm just simply targeting the chord tones of the chord and using whatever notes I want to get to them. So we're coming from this D right here. Next note we're targeting is this B right there. What is that? That's G's third. 1, 2, 3, right? The third. How am I getting to that B? In the same way that I just got to the F sharp earlier. Remember this? Play the A, play the note ahead of the F sharp, the 2 notes behind F sharp, and then finally the F sharp. Doing the same thing here on this D right here. Right? Very common, classic little, jazz bluegrass phrase. I'm playing this D, playing the C, right? The note ahead of B, playing the 2 notes behind B, A sharp, if you want to call it that, and then the B. Again, why would I play B? That's G, the chord I'm on. It's third, right? Chord tone. Again, on the downbeat. 5th, third, just like that. Now when I'm here, when I hit this third, walk up an arpeggio, just 3, 5, 1. So 3, 5, 1 of G. Then I play the 2 of G and then land on this note. That's F sharp. Why would I land on that note? Because the chord or the sound that I'm implying is G major 7, and that is G's 7. How do I know that? Because that's G, the root. I'm simply playing the note back a fret. That's always where 7 is. If you're ever playing a chord and you can locate the root, go back a fret, you are now playing the 7, right? Playing that sort of chord. That sort of chord. That's why I'm targeting that note, because that's the voicing that's happening in the track. So let me play from this B one more time. So 3, 5, 1, 2, 7. Again, where is that note? On a downbeat. Downbeat. Downbeat, right? Just targeting that note. And what are the notes if you want to know? That's just B, D, G, A, F sharp. Then I do another little chromatic type of passage that takes me from this F sharp, right here, the 7th of G, to the 5th of G, the D. Just literally walking straight chromatic down. I'm in the F sharp, F natural, E, E flat, D. Again, do I care about what scale I'm playing or what those notes are? No, I don't care at all. I just want to do something to connect this F sharp to this D. I could have done anything. I could have gone kind of similar to what I did earlier, but I kind of wanted to experiment a little bit with this chromatic sound, so that's what I'm doing, right? You can fill in the gap between the chord tones with whatever you want. So let's recap so far. We're coming from this D right here, the 5th of the G chord. Now, once we get here, we're walking up this shape. Kind of an interesting little shape all over the G chord, of course. That's going to be G's 5, 7, 1, 2, and then 5 on top. Now, once we hit this note, we're actually now into the next set of chords, which we'll talk about in the next video. But that's where we'll end this particular track. We're going to end on this note after this run. So let me play this run one more time. Coming down from the chromatic F sharp to D, sounding like this. Once we hit this D, I'm reaching up playing D, F sharp right there on the G string, G, A on the B string, and then pinky here on the high E string. You can, of course, do this. You can walk chromatic. If you want to roll your finger D, F sharp, G, A, you can do that. For some reason, That's easier for me. I like how it feels. I like how it sounds. You don't have to do that. You don't have to play D, F sharp like that. You can just roll the finger D, F sharp. Completely up to you. I'm doing it like this though. You can play it however you'd like. So that's pretty much this whole part. Let me recap everything. Play the whole thing nice and slow. Keep in mind the chord tones that we're targeting, and keep in mind how we're getting to all these notes. So here it is coming from the D7. G. That's the whole thing. We'll play it one more time, nice and slow without talking. That's the whole passage. So you can see the same concepts we were talking about in part one, targeting these chord tones, putting them on downbeats, filling the space in between with kind of whatever we want, sometimes in the key, sometimes out of the key. Who cares? As long as it sounds cool and is fun to play, you can do it. Same exact stuff right here. We're just talking about a different chord progression. We're talking about D7, D dominant, moving to G major, the 5 and then the 1 of the key. So we're going to play over 2 backing tracks right here. First backing track is going to be exactly what I just played, and that's going to be 70 to 110, same thing. And then the second backing track is going to combine parts 1 and part 2s, and that one's going to run 75 BPM to 120. So let me play all of that. That's going to be part 1, what we did before in the other video, and then exactly what we just did right here, connecting without stopping. That sounds like this. Part 2. And then we stop, repeat, etc. So both of these videos will stop with that note on top. The first video, we will, of course, just repeat what we did today. Second video, or second backing track, I should say, we'll do both parts 1 and part 2 flowing into each other. So hopefully you're ready for these tracks. Practice whatever you need to do. Come back and we'll run these tracks again. First one, 70 to 110. Second one, 75 to 120. that does it for part 2 of this Playing Over Changes power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and I'll see you all in part 3.